Hey there, I am so glad you're here. Come on in and enjoy Coffee Chat at the Cubby Hole. Okay, you might be thinking, coffee sounds fun, but girl, what is the Cubby Hole? The Cubby Hole was a divine little nudge on my heart, if you will, to build this space in our basement, in our home, where our friends and family could come and receive encouragement and love. And that's exactly what we've been doing. I've always known that the Cubby Hole would have a ripple effect out into the world, that it could bring encouragement and hope, not just to people that could visit here in person. That is exactly why I do Coffee Chats. I get to take some of the coolest people that are just like you and just like me, who have skill and talent, but most importantly, they have a vulnerable, relatable story that we can all glean some hope and encouragement from. So grab a coffee, cozy up, and enjoy Coffee Chats at the Cubby Hole. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to Coffee Chats at the Cubby Hole. I am so glad you are here. Today is going to be so powerful. I don't know if you have struggled with addiction or a spirit of rejection in your life, or maybe you know somebody who has. Either way, today is going to be such a blessing for you or for somebody that you may want to share this with. I have been looking forward to today for quite some time. I'm going to tell you the story about how I met this special guest of mine, which is such a God sprinkle in itself. But today I'm going to be talking with my special guest, Rich Harmsen. He's going to be joining us from Texas. He has, what's interesting is he says, this is what he says. It's so cool. He says that he is not in recovery. He's in going through transformation. He is in transformation from addiction. And he's going to explain that a little bit more. But he hasn't had alcohol in over 18 years. He has a beautiful story of transformation. A beautiful story about how he found Jesus, which is his anchor, and his strength through this transformation. I just love Rich and his wife Tammy, and again, I can't wait to tell you how we met. But they are the founders of a facility in Mount Pleasant, Texas, called the Ranch Ministries. And they take in, I think it's 8 men at a time, and they help them with their transformation. Rich is a pastor. He is a wonderful husband and a father. And today he is going to be a beautiful, beautiful inspiration with his story. And I can't wait to share him with you. So without further ado, let me bring in my special guest. Good morning, Rich. How are you?
Hi, Marlo. That's just awesome to be here today. Love it.
It's so great to have you here. And by the way, before I forget, I want to wish you a very happy birthday tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes. I can no longer say I'm a 64-year-old Jesus freak after today. Tomorrow I'll be a 65-year-old Jesus freak.
You have to roll the number over. Get ready.
Yes, I do.
65. Yeah. Well, happy birthday. You deserve to have such a wonderful day celebrating whatever you guys decide to do.
Thank you.
I also want to start by just sharing how cool that Holy Spirit is. The way we met, I just want to briefly share this, that about a month or so ago, we had a live Cubby Hole comedy show. So about a month prior to that, I was planning for the show. And at the Cubby Hole comedy nights, I like to offer a small percentage of any love offering that comes into a charitable organization. So at 3:00 in the morning, I put a post on Facebook that if anybody knows a charitable organization, to please share that with me. And within 10 minutes, a mutual friend of ours Sherry DiMaggio responded and said, "Oh my gosh, I know this couple and she told me about your ministry. I contacted you guys. We knew we were kindred spirits. It was just a beautiful connection.
Yeah.
And we've been friends ever since then. And your story has been so powerful. So that is how we met. And I feel so blessed to know you and Tammy."
Wow. Well, it's just a God thing, those divine appointments. And that definitely was one that night.
Mm-hmm.
So.
For sure. And it was funny because one of our first conversations, I think I said something about God weaving the tapestry, something like that. And there was something that you had just said that you really had never said before. So it was a definite God sprinkle and a definite confirmation that we were supposed to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That interweaving of those appointments is just incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of tapestries, your beautiful tapestry of your life has had its ups and its downs, and it's I can't wait till later in the show to talk about just the beauty of your life right now. And it is a true transformation of mind, heart, soul, physically things happening in your life. But what I would love to start, Rich, is for you to just really start wherever you would like to begin and start the conversation about your beautiful transformation story.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just go back a ways. I had a pretty normal childhood, I thought, and went to church all the time, and we're in a small community, an Dutch agriculture community in Southern California, and life was not too bad, really. I didn't think, and but at 16, I did what a lot of guys do: is I started to I wanted to be cool. I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be like a lot of other people, and I began to drink. And I began to smoke, and I began to look at pornography, and I opened a door that night when I first began to drink. That other addiction followed, and for me, within 2 years, it had pretty much already taken over my life. I was able to function. I was able to hold jobs. I was able to work. I got married at 19, and life was pretty normal, but it was definitely centered around alcohol.
Right. And it became an addiction. You know what I would love to do? You sent me a video that actually I saw it when you shared it on Facebook, and it also recaps your journey. I have 2 different videos that I want to show today, but let me run this one. And in this, you share more of the story. So let me run this, and then I'll see you just on the other side of it.
Okay. This morning, I've got this sweatshirt on today that the word freedom is pasted across the front of it. And, there was a time in my life, I was about 16 years old, and I decided it was time to exercise my freedom. And I started to play around with cigarettes. I started playing around with alcohol. I started playing around with porn and some other issues. And I thought I was free. I thought I was exercising my freedom. But the truth was I was really putting myself into chains. What I thought I was exercising freedom, I was actually putting myself into bondage, and I didn't know it. And I really believe for 30 years, actually, I believed that that was my right and that was my freedom to do whatever I wanted, and the ability to do whatever I want. I thought that was freedom, and the Lord showed me a long time ago, in my late 40s, that really wasn't freedom. Freedom was not to do the ability to do whatever I wanted to do, but freedom is actually the ability not to do what I don't want to do. And there came a point in my life where I didn't want the alcohol, I didn't want the porn, I didn't want the women, I didn't want that. I wanted Jesus Christ. And he took that desire to do those other things away from me, and he replaced that with a desire for him, and it gave me freedom to say no to the things that I no longer wanted to do. And that's why I have such a passion in my life to help men who with addictions, is because there's only one place that you can ever be set free. The world will tell you you can never be set free. The world will say you're always going to be an alcoholic. The world will say you're always going to be an addict. I got news for you. That's a lie from the pit of hell. All right? Because the Bible says that whomever is in Christ becomes a new creation, and all the old goes away and everything becomes new. So if you're believing that you're always going to be identified by the sin that you committed, I'm telling you, that's a lie. All right? And so that was a burning passion in my life, and it still is today. I've been doing this for a few years now, for a minute, as they say. And I still have that same passion that I had the day that I started, to see men get radically set free. Not to see men learn how to control their addictions. That's not freedom. Freedom is to be removed from the obligation to partake in the addiction. And we don't sit around here talking about all the stuff we used to do. We celebrate the new life that we have, and we go to the scripture and we examine what it's supposed to look like to be a man of God.
Oh my goodness. As I was listening to that the last day, there's so many notes that I wrote down that I want to refer to. I mean, it's overwhelming. That is such a power-packed video, by the way. And when you think about all the things that are out there on social media, some bring value, some not so much. That is such a valuable video. Every word to that video is so powerful. I love your sweatshirt. I am all about the word freedom. That is such a powerful word.
Yeah.
And it's the perfect way.
It really is.
Yeah. It's the perfect way to describe your story. One of the things that you said is you want to celebrate new life. Yeah. That we're a new creation, and that it's not about, you had mentioned before, it's not about the drinking. It's about who you are now.
Right.
Not about the old you. It's about you as the new creation.
Yeah. Yeah. See, when the scripture says that old man dies, I really embrace that. I'm one of those people that believes the whole Bible, and so there's verses in there that talk about freedom and being set free and being released from bondage, and so it's so important for men to realize that once they leave that old life behind, that they no longer have to carry the guilt and the shame around anymore either. They don't have to worry about what they did, and that's a hard thing to overcome sometimes for people. Sometimes the people around you won't let you forget, and
we could be a new creation.
Yeah, and I have to laugh because sometimes I'll get a wife or a mother, I'll get a phone call and saying, I don't know what you're doing over there, but you need to back off a little bit because he's just getting a little too carried away with this God stuff.
I imagine because maybe they haven't had their own experience yet, but it's such a beautiful experience for the person that is there and experiencing before.
Yeah, but the key to that really is, Marlo, is what you touched on there. It's realizing that you're no longer that person anymore. And if that's not you, then why are you still living in guilt and shame?
That's the word I was just going to use. Just wrote it down. Shame. That is such a trap, a bondage trap is that word shame. And that's why I've been so excited to do this coffee chat with you today, because I hope and I pray that whoever needs to see this will see it, because it's a powerful story of transformation, but it's also such a powerful story of breaking free from that bondage. So many, this month is about focusing on men. It's all things men, but women too. Or the women that are in a man's life, if they are struggling. But the thing is, it's about the shame and the guilt. And like you said, so many people might feel like they cannot have freedom from that. And there's so many people that are walking around just angry and showing that anger. And it's because it's rooted in their shame that and they've been told, maybe you're a loser. Look what you've done. Look at the lives you might have ruined. Whatever. And it's such a heavy burden to carry that shame.
Yeah, we carry. I like the way you said that. They've been told,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a big deal with when we begin to unpackage things. Um, the spoken word, the scripture says there's life and death in the spoken word, and
Yes.
so many of us have had things spoken over us in the negative that we've carried around for years and years and years and years, and it's really it's become our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even realize that there was something that was spoken over us when we were small that we've carried through our entire life, and it has affected how we have our relationships, how we deal with work, how we deal with family, and all because of a spoken word.
No doubt there. That is my specialty, is that working with people that have been telling themselves a story. And I always say, sometimes those sabotaging experiences is what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it comes from well-intended people, sometimes not, but they're lies. They're lies. And the person may not even realize they're telling a lie, and sometimes it comes from bad advice. Bad advice. I could see in a situation like this where somebody, would say, you can't recover. This is our family. This is, look at your life. It's been messed up. Don't even try. And so that is heartbreaking, but it's stories like yours that can help set people free.
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that people say, you know how I feel. You can be set free from alcohol. I never identify as an alcoholic because that man died. And they say, well, you're just setting yourself up to fail. Well, what you don't realize is because I've been set free, the desire to drink is no longer there. It's not that I can drink and control it. That would be dumb. All right. But it's the desire to have a drink, the desire to look at pornography, the desire to be with someone that I shouldn't be with. That's all gone. And it's because I'm not the same person that I was, because Romans 12, 1 and 2, I think I shared that with you the other day. Do not be conformed by the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. I don't even think like I used to think. I look at things totally different than the way that I used to look at things. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, absolutely. And it's I loved when we were talking about Romans 12, because it's such a powerful scripture that we can just fall into being conformed into the ways of the world. It's so easy to do that, especially when, we might be missing a foundation that is so important, and to be able to transform to that new foundation is so powerful. So with addiction and the different addictions that you mentioned, how did that show up in your life as a byproduct? Relationships, how did it show up? How was it you were seeing there was destruction, or whatever word you want to use, but how did it show up?
Well, you know what? I always say the alcohol wasn't the issue. The alcohol was the means that I used to get over the issue. All right. And I don't know, I shared with you about a few years back, I met a man that came to the church where we were at, and he was a man of God, and this man heard from God. I mean, I had no doubts. And I was sitting down in a private meeting with him, and he just looked across the desk at me and he says, "You've battled a spirit of rejection your whole life." And I was like, he didn't know what he's talking about. And I don't have that, that macho John Wayne thing, that came up in me. And, I was good. I was doing well at this. I was in the ministry. I'm like, what's he talking about? But I began to think about that. And I thought, well, because he said specifically, you've had it since a very young age. And, I thought, well, I only have one source to go to. My mother had passed away already, and my dad had been gone my dad died before I got cleaned up, and was my oldest sister. So I reached out to my older sister because I thought I better ask her. Maybe she knows something I don't know.
That I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So I got her on the phone and I just said, hey, this is going to sound kind of weird, but I'm going to ask you. I've been told that I may have had a spirit of rejection on me from a very young age. And my sister began to cry. Oh, gosh. And she just said, you have no idea that when you were a baby, you were very colicky and mom didn't want to deal with it. And she would just pick you up and put you in your crib and close the door and let you lay there and just cry and cry and cry. She just rejected you. And she said, I had the room next door and I would my bed was right against the same wall that your crib was. And I would lay there and we would cry ourselves to sleep together night after night. And I was like, oh, wow. That was just, I wasn't angry but it just made sense because, I have always had this fear of being alone. This fear of rejection was on me. And you ask how that plays out. Well, for one thing, I was very insecure because of the rejection, the spirit of that. And so alcohol was a tool that I used to change how I feel. I tell the guys all the time, I ask them, why do you use meth? Why do you use pills? Why do you smoke dope? Why? And it's always to change the way I feel. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did as I used pornography, I used women, I used alcohol. I wanted to change how I felt. Mm-hmm. But because of that fear, as far as relationships, every time a relationship would get to a certain point that I felt like there might be troubled waters ahead, I would bail. I would leave you before you could leave me. Mm-hmm. And I always made sure that I had someplace to go when it came to that point, because I was always sure I was going to get rejected again. And it didn't dawn on me until I was 50 years old, in my 50s, that they weren't rejecting me. I was rejecting them because I was afraid they were going to reject me. Mm-hmm. And it was just that fear that was inside of me that was just so overwhelming, So it just, mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, please.
I was just going to say, so it just put a lot of things. I wasn't dealing with that anymore. I believe that I had worked through it, but I never knew why. And it just put a lot of things into clarity for me. And it made a lot of sense.
That is, again, why I have such a passion for one word, stories. It's the stories that I always say, if we can get a shovel and start mining out into the stories and mining out the truth, we can find the moments that anchor point. And it's so powerful to hear that story and about how it affected you, and that you're talking about, you're talking about alcohol and porn and that spirit of rejection and women. And for anybody that's watching, obviously, we can all say, what is our addiction? So many people, we find a counterfeit comfort when we're, like you said, we're trying to mask what it is that we're feeling. It could be shopping. It could be food. I know a lot of people, it's food. There's something that they're masking. It could be they're addicted to their response in anger or controlling or narcissism. There's so many different types of addiction, or as I like to call it, counterfeit comforts. As you said, you were numbing out. You didn't want to have to show up and feel those feelings. So you were numbing out, and it's a powerful connection. It's a powerful connection to be able to connect all of that. And that's the beginning process of being able to release from the shame. What we repress will be expressed, and to be able to put our finger on it is so freeing and so powerful.
I'm going to have to write that one down. That was good.
When you go back and watch it, grab a pen. We live in Texas. Why don't we talk about John Wayne for a minute?
Okay.
Wayne. I am so passionate. When I
actually lived in Burbank, by the way.
He does not. No, he does not live in Burbank. I love that. Noted. Very important. I've had the joy, the privilege of inadvertently working with more men lately. I've always worked with women, and it's been such a blessing. I realize, and that's why I wanted to do the whole month of June focusing on just men. I realize that men are, there's so many men that are in bondage. They're in chains, and you guys, men carry so much. And one of the reasons the weight that they carry is so heavy is because of what, I refer to as the John Wayne theory.
Yeah.
I love that theory because it's men feel like they have to walk around this world carrying so much weight. You can't let it show. You can't tell anybody. You can't cry. You can't admit. And they're heavy chains. And that's why so many men it's not as prevalent in this generation. We're seeing that. But in prior generations, they had to be this tough guy. And men were dying of heart attacks and angry and finding counterfeit comforts and being angry at their wife and their children. And for the time being, destroying relationships. It's such a heavy burden.
What we have, I believe, is a lot of men have no idea what it looks like to be a man, especially a man of God. And I'll often ask the men when they come in, if I bring you into my office and I bring in a Boeing 737 engine, totally torn apart, no schematics, the metals aren't cut, the wires are just rolls of wire. Everything's there that you need to build an engine, a jet engine. And I said, it's Friday evening. I want this running Monday morning. You have no outside help. Can you do it? 90% of the time, they say no. And I'll say, because I have that 10% that think they can do anything.
Well, let me try.
Yeah. But 90% of the time they say no. And I'll ask them, I said, why? And they said, because I don't know how. Nobody's ever showed me. Mm-hmm. And I says, and now that you've made a decision to change your life, you want to become something that you have no idea what it looks like. And what we want to do is show you what it looks like to be a man, a father, a son, a brother of God. And so that's where we focus on, that is teaching them what it's supposed to look like, because we don't know. I didn't know. I had no idea. We see David. Everybody sees David as the giant slayer, but man, there's so much more to David. He wrote poetry.
Right. Right. Yes, he was a musician.
He played a harp.
Yeah.
You play a harp today, people kind of go, oh, okay, But he was a king. He was a child of God, and he would cry to God, and he would cry out to God, and he would pour his heart out to God. And he was a man of integrity, and he was a man that kept his word, and that's what a man of God looks like. It's no wonder God said he's a man after my own heart. In spite of his failures, he was a man. And what men have to learn is, in spite of our failures, we can still become men after God's own hearts.
I love that you're mentioning David, and I love to refer to Paul as well, formerly known as Saul. I talk about that. I've talked about that with our boys. I talk about them with men, because we can be transformed. God, what did you say? There was a quote. Oh, I don't have it right in front of me, but you said understanding who we are. We were talking about that the other day, understanding who we are in God's eyes. But David and Paul, they had their days where they weren't, acting as they did later. And so many men feel like it's too late. My story's written, and they are the perfect examples of transformation. Like Paul, like almost a literal transformation.
I love that you said that. I just read a book not too long ago. I just taught a series out of a book, and one of the things that was in the book, it said you have to learn to flip the script.
Yeah.
That just because the story so far in your life is pointing to that end, you can change the script and change the ending. You can't change the beginning, but you can change the end of your story.
That is such a powerful truth. That right there, golden nugget quote, one of the quotes of the day. It's so true. It's so true. We can go back and rewrite the script, which will then rewrite our narrative, what we're telling ourselves, what we're telling how we're showing up in the world. Brene Brown has a great quote, and she says, when we deny our story, it owns us.
Yeah.
When
Amen.
we grab a hold of the story, we can write a brave new ending. And that's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta embrace, you don't dwell on your past, but you have to embrace it. You have to own it and realize because unless you own it, it'll always have power over you.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to take that power away is to say, yep, that was me, but that's not who I am anymore.
And to believe the truth that it is possible, and to believe the truth that it may not be smooth. And with that point, I would love to talk about the Ranch Ministries. You and Tammy started the Ranch Ministries, and these are truths that you are pouring into men's lives. So would you just tell us how you started it? I mentioned the number of men that you work with. Tell us about the ranch. So powerful.
Oh, well, probably about 12, 13 years ago, the Lord really put it on my heart to minister to men. And I was working. I still had a job. I was working full time. And so I began to meet with men, one or two, one-on-one. And I would meet with them in the mornings at 6 a.m. before I'd go to work. I'd meet them in my warehouse. And we'd sit down I used to sell cleaning supplies for dairies. And we'd sit down on a barrel of soap and we would just go through Proverbs every morning.
Wait, how cool that you were sitting on a barrel of soap.
I never really thought about that just now. Okay, yeah. We were sitting on the cleaning.
God knows the tapestry. He knows.
Yeah.
Wow.
And,
cleansing.
Yeah, it was just, it started there. And it wasn't but a couple of years later, I came home one day and I said to my wife, I says, I think I'm supposed to quit my job and go full time. And she looked at me and she goes, well, I've been waiting because God told me that a couple months ago already. And so that fear that she was going to be upset that I'm going to lay down half of our income and open up a ministry, I was so afraid to tell her. And she was like waiting for me to tell her because God had already spoken to her heart. And so we started, and for the first several years, I would just meet men. The church we were going to allowed me to use some office space there, and I would just meet men. We would keep a couple of men at our house. We had a travel trailer. We'd let them sleep in the trailer. When we got up to 3, one time we had to have one sleep in the house with us, and we just ministered because I wanted to minister like Jesus ministered. It had to be one-on-one. I had to love that one. And Heidi Baker says that, just love the one and the one that God puts in front of you. And I so have grasped that. And so that's how we began. And then one day we got a phone call. I don't think I've ever shared this with you. We were actually up. This is so. We were in Arkansas on Mount Nebo. Now, Mount Nebo is the same mountain that Moses got on and Joshua were on to look out into Joshua got on to look out into the promised land. And we were sitting. There's a mountain called Mount Nebo in Arkansas, and we got a phone call that they wanted us to be at an open house event in town the next day. And they thought we had been told. Nobody had ever told us. So we said, okay, we'll get up early tomorrow and we'll drive and we'll get there. Well, we get there and it's a Sunday afternoon and we're there for a few hours and we haven't talked to anybody. I mean, we hadn't talked to nobody and nobody's coming in the door to talk to us. So my wife says, I'm going to church. I'm like, I'm going to go. And she goes, no, you can't, you got to stay. So I stayed and I'm packing up. She leaves and I'm starting to pack up. And the lady across the aisle was with another ministry and her husband looked at her and says, let's just pack up and go. And she goes, no, we told the man we'd be here till 5. And I went, oh man. So I stayed, I sat down. That just happened. And this man walks through the front door and he walks right up to me and he goes, I have something for you. And I said, what do you have? And he goes, I've got a church. And this was my reaction, with people? Because I didn't want a church with people. And he goes, oh, no. We're closing up and we want to give you our building.
And give you your what?
They wanted to give us the building.
Wow.
And the acre of land that it was sitting on. And so the ranch property was born through that. So that's where we're at. Fast forward 2 years ago, we had bought another acre next door, and the Lord spoke to us through a prophet that said it's time to build. And my wife got that word. She received that word. And we went to our board. This was pre-COVID, barely pre-COVID, and said, we're going to build. We had $50,000 in the bank, and we're going to build a house. And they're all like, okay, go for it. And so we went through COVID last year. Everybody was not meeting, downsizing. We were building. And we built a house. And in the process of building that house, the house is done, by the way. We moved in January 1st. It's paid for. It's completely paid for. We don't owe anybody anything on it. And in the process of drawing up designs and trying to figure out what we're going to do, and I woke up one morning and I just heard the Lord say 8, because we were like 10 beds, 12 beds, and I heard the word 8, and I said, I guess we're building a house of 8. I'm not a numerology guy. I didn't know anything about it. Well, we began to tell people we're going to build a house of 8. And they're like, do you know what that means? No, what does that mean? 8 is the number of new beginnings. It's the number of transformation in the Bible. And so we built the house of 8. And it's a house, like you referred to earlier, of transformation, because it's not about recovering. Because the word recovery means taking back something,
right?
Recovering it. We don't want to take back that old man, because that old man was broke. Yeah. All right. When I counsel couples, they'll say, we just want God to put our marriage back together. And I said, I got news for you. God doesn't want your marriage put back together.
Not that way. Not the way that it was.
He wants to give you a brand new marriage. And so that's our focus, is transforming, new beginnings, becoming something brand new. We spend a ton of time on identity. We spend a lot on the orphan spirit. Mm-hmm. We spend a lot of time on sonship. But the transform mind is probably like the biggest thing that we have to focus on.
Mm-hmm. You know what I love too, all of that. I love that you had mentioned in the beginning of where you were sitting, and the name was, the parallel was with the promised land.
Yes.
And first of all, that struck me right away, because the promised land just indicates hope. And then you're talking about receiving the prophetic word about the number 8 and it being new beginnings and hope. And then the second part of that is, with the Israelites wandering around the mountain over and over again. And I love that story too, because it's okay to show, we don't get it right the first time. Sometimes it takes about 40 years, right? And with your story, right? You were 50, or how old were you when?
I was like 4. Well, I was 50 years old when I was born again. Mm-hmm. And so it was one of those suddenly moments that took 40 years.
There you go.
In your beginning, suddenly I was a new man, but I've been struggling for 40 years. So.
Right. Well, there's just another cool weave in this story, is just the promised land, new beginnings, and just where you were sitting. I did not know that part of the story, where you were sitting when that happened, and so very, very powerful. So the ranch, you bring in 8 men, and boy, up to 8. I'm just imagining. And you know what? We'll tell everybody the website, and I'll put it in the comments too, because there's powerful pictures on that website.
Yeah, it's the ranchmp.com. The ranch, M is in mountain, P is in pleasant.com.
I'll put a link, because there's some pictures on there of just the togetherness, and just you can just see the power of what's going on there. So when you're working with these men, it's got to be so powerful, but it also has to be a challenge in the beginning, because not only what they've brought into their life, the shame that they have, but the deep-rooted belief at the time that there isn't hope.
Right. Well, it's funny because, you know what, my wife and I, and this is what we tell people. They say, what do you do? Well, we're hope dealers, because that's what we do. We give people hope in all kinds of different situations. And that's what we do. And that's why 8, you know, and I understand that there's a place for large facilities and lots of men, but that's not what God's called us to do. God has called us to love. All right. He's called us to love these men, teach them that going back to the John Wayne theory, that it's okay for someone to tell you that they love you. And it's okay to have that. And we operate, I always say we're the only program without a program. You know, because you can't come to me, well, what am I going to be doing in 2 weeks? I don't know. You know, well, what about a month? I don't know. See, because we really don't know, because we take every man as an individual. I remember several years ago, I was sitting in an office that I was using, and I had worked with 3, 4, 5 guys already, and the word was kind of getting out a little bit. And one day, this big guy walks in, and he goes, "I'm looking for Rich Harmsen." And I went, "It's me." He goes,
"Find out what you want first before I
exactly." And he goes,
"You need."
I don't have a problem with drinking. I don't have a problem with drugs. Big Texan man. I just got a lot of anger. Can you help me? And I'm thinking, in my head, I'm going, no, I can't. But out of my mouth goes, sure, I'll help you. And he left. We set up an appointment. He left. And I just prayed. I said, God, what are you doing? I mean, because this was out of my comfort zone. And he goes, I'm doing what I've been doing. He says, you do what you've been doing, because you ain't done anything yet, because I've been doing all the work. You just keep pointing them to me. And so that's what we do. I mean, to really boil it all down, we have a couple of things that we tell people. I'm going to put you in the best possible position to succeed.
I love that. That you said you want to put them in line to have their own experience with Jesus.
Well, that's the other thing is we want, my job is to put every man in a position to have a manifest encounter with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You know, and what they do with it after that is on their own. But that's my job.
And you had said also equally important is, what is not your job. It's not your job to try to change the person, try to, push them into an experience. It's just your job to put them in line for an experience.
Yeah. I learned a long time ago that anybody can change if they have to for a short period of time. If they have to, they'll change for a period of time. But when you change because of love, it's everlasting. Right. And so I can remember a young man that came in, love this guy. He came in because of women and alcohol. And I thought, oh, son, you're just like me. And when he shared his testimony, when we were done meeting, he just says, I came to the ranch because of my drinking, but I fell in love with God and everything changed. And that was his testimony. It was that simple, but it was that's it.
Yeah.
I fell in love and everything changed. It's just, you can't go any farther than that.
Right. And the moments following, and they know some of the moments following are challenging, but the truth is just that simple. And when we can all anchor ourselves in that truth.
Yeah.
It is so freeing. Your statement with the ranch is that the mission is to put God in the hearts of men and men back into their families.
Yeah. I just really felt from the very beginning that the Lord was telling me that my job was to try and catch those men that were falling through the cracks. Mm-hmm. That they might be working, they might still have their families, they might, but things aren't right. Everybody's got this plastic surface, but underneath that surface there was a lot of chaos. And because that was my life for most of my life, it always looked like I was okay, but underneath it was all a big mess. And so with that being said, we're not looking for someone to come and stay for a year or 9 months or a year and a half. That's not what we're about. I always say we're not a landing pad, we're a launching pad.
Ooh, wow, that's really great.
And we bring them in and we give them all the tools that they need, and then we're going to walk out the door with them and go to their job. You know, metaphorically, I guess it is, but we're there. We're not bringing, because you know, you lock a man up, he won't drink. But what happens when you let him loose? So going back to that other statement, we'll put you in we'll give you every opportunity to succeed, but we're also going to give you every opportunity to fail. Because you have to learn how to make good choices. Mm-hmm. Because it all comes down to choices. And if your choices are based in love, you'll make the right choice. So
I love the work.
Marlo, you can get me talking and we'll be here for about 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, I love it. I love talking with you and Tammy. And let's talk about Tammy for a minute. I know she's a powerful force there at the ranch. I love what you said. I had a video that I created with the two of you, and I forget how you said it, but you give her a lot of credit in this, and I love that.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah.
she wants to sit over there, but we wouldn't be here without her.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
You both are so incredible. And when I loved learning more and more about your story of the, you know, having women in your life. You had that where you were living a life where you would want to go from one woman to the other because you didn't want to be alone, even whether they were maybe the wrong relationship or not. You had that spirit of rejection, so you would say goodbye to them before they had a chance to say goodbye to you. And I just take all that in, and I look at your life now. You and Tammy love each other. I mean, seeing that, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put, I have so many things I want to put in the comments here. I'm going to put that video of the three of us chatting. You guys are so lovely. From the second I hopped on a FaceTime call with you guys, I could just feel the energy between the two of you. There's so much love. And I know that it's rooted with a foundation of Jesus, which is so beautiful. I love your life now. I mean, I love hearing about all of your life, but I just love watching your life and seeing your life. I talked to you on the phone the other day. You were sitting in such a peaceful part of your yard, listening to the birds. And I'm just picturing all that you've journeyed through into this world of transformation because of Jesus. And your life now is so incredible. And I want to play another video right now, but you took another step toward another piece of freedom in your life, right? So you had the transformation from addiction, and then you felt that it was time to grab a hold of your health. So let me play this video, and then we'll talk about it in just a minute.
About a year ago, not quite a year ago, probably about 6-7 months ago, the Lord put something else on my heart. And he says, you believed a lie. He said, you believe that it's okay, that it's normal for your health to be the way that your health is. And I was like, yeah, but you know, I'm older. You know, I hear guys say, you know, I've worked a lot of years to build this up. And but the truth of the matter is, you've worked a lot of years to put yourself in bondage to an unhealthy lifestyle. And I didn't think that there was any way that I could change that. I had gone through 4 major surgeries in 5 years. I had put on some good weight, and I thought that's just the way it was. But my wife and I made a decision last fall to take our health back. We prayed about it, and we went to the Lord, and we really feel like the Lord brought us to a place and brought us to some people that showed us a way to get set free from our addiction to that unhealthy lifestyle. And man, I'm telling you that it has changed our lives. I weighed in today at 190, And I'm like, I haven't been 190 since I was a senior in high school. And it's just amazing to me how good I feel, how excited I am to be in this new lifestyle, because I am now free to make healthy choices. And it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, my grandkids were here last week. We went on 2 hikes, 2 days in a row, Thursday and Friday. I would have never been able to do that 6 months ago. And we're making plans to go out to California, to the mountains of California in June, and we'll be going on hikes 2-3 times. And it's amazing. But here's the thing: if you've believed the lie that says, you know what, it's just normal to put on all this extra weight as you get older, that's a lie. That's not true. That comes from believing the lie that says, you know what, it is what it is, and it'll be okay.
Wow, so powerful. I want to show your pictures.
Oh no.
Look at the talk about transformation.
Yeah. Who's that fat guy?
Wow. Oh my gosh, here's another one.
Wow, that's even worse.
Oh, it's so powerful. Let's see here. We'll get rid of that picture, but so powerful, that transformation.
Yeah,
and again, and I love how it all rolled out, where you have this transformation from one area of your life. Now it's time to start another. And it's funny because I only know you the way that you look now. I saw this on Facebook, and Tammy too, both of you.
Yeah.
So powerful. I know you have a very cool process and a story behind how you did this. And so if people want to learn more about that, I'm going to put your how they can contact you one-on-one. But boy, kudos to you. That's not an easy task. You've been so dedicated, and look at the byproduct of that. You go hiking with your grandkids, and you get to feel so much better.
Yeah. The beginning of May, I gave myself a goal, because I just said, by the time I turn 65, I want to walk 5 miles 3 times a week. And so I've done it twice already this week, 5.5 miles actually. And I've got one more that I've got to get in between now and tomorrow evening, and in between the rainstorms here in Northeast Texas. But yeah, it's just crazy. Together, Tammy and I have lost over 110 pounds.
So congratulations in that. And I'll tell you, that video I think it was a different video that you posted about your goal with walking. I was making dinner one night, and I had my phone propped up, and I was listening to your live, and it inspired me so much, because as we get older, we have to find the exercise that works. And I just posted a video last night from a woman I found on YouTube, and I put it on there for women going through menopause, that we don't have to beat ourselves up. We have to possibly change the way we're working out if it's not serving us. And if you feel like you're beating yourself up and you don't feel good for it, but walking is so powerful, and it's undervalued. And sometimes we might feel like, oh, we're not working. I felt like I'm not working out if I'm just walking. And it's so powerful. And you inspired me with your video.
Well, I appreciate that. And really that's in everything that Tammy and I do, from the ministry to the health. It's all about inspiring people. I have a young man in Ohio that's reached out, and he saw that video, and he started running again, hadn't been running in a while. And he's been sending posts about he's improving his times. And it's just because, if you can, we're so afraid to put ourselves out there. And the one thing that my wife and I have learned is we've learned how to live out loud.
Oh, good.
We've learned how to we're not just doing our ministry and the health, but we're putting ourselves out there and saying, look, this is who we are, and this is what you could have, because see, Jesus, this is not I just really need to say this, he says, I came so that you could have life and have it more abundantly. And I'm not talking prosperity here. I'm just talking, Jesus said that he wanted you to have an abundant life. That's a better life. And so many of us have settled for less than, my wife put it this way one time, and I just love it. She says, so many people look at God as if he's a quarter, and they spend their whole life looking at this side of the quarter. They never get up and go look at the other side. Wow. There's so much more that God wants us to have, and opportunities that he provides, but we got to get up out of the chair, and we got to go do it. so many people are just saying, God, do this. God's going, no, you do it. I'll help you.
Yeah, let's do it together.
Yeah, let's do this. And so that's my little sermonette.
I love. At the end here, I would love to just talk about a few hows. We talk about the transformation and the stories on these shows, and at the end, I like to recap to give everybody some of your steps on what they could do if they find themselves in the same story. Held captive maybe by the same story. But there's a few things that we talked about this week that I wanted to share. One was you talked about the two men in the balcony from the Muppets.
Yeah.
About that for a second. I love that. I mean, I think I know a lot of people. I can relate with that. A lot of people will relate with
that. Okay, so I'll set the stage for that if we got a minute.
Yeah.
I was at a Bible study one night. I was in my late 40s, and I was alone. I was alone for the first time in my life. For the first time in my life, I wasn't in a relationship with anybody. I was at a place that I had never been. I had never experienced that in my entire life, and I was giving myself to the Lord. I was going after God, and I was in this Bible study, and it was full of couples. All right, and they started right to the right of me. And the very first man goes, we do praise and prayer requests before we start. And he goes, I just want to give God all the glory from my wife. Well, of course, the wife goes, okay, I just want to give all the glory from my husband. Well, the next guy, he didn't have a choice. If he didn't say, I'm going to give God the glory from my wife, he was going to get the snake eye. Okay.
You want the real, you want what they were going to say.
Yeah. Well, they wound up going around the whole room, and they got about 3/4 of the way around the room. And I got angrier and angrier and angrier at God because I was alone. And I got up like I was going to go to the bathroom, and I went out the back door and I went home. Mm-hmm. And I walked into my house alone. And I slammed the door and I said, what do you want? And all I heard was an audible voice. All I've ever wanted was you. And it just broke me. Marlo, I went down on the ground. I cried for hours. I don't know how long I laid there. And I sat up and I just said, I just don't get this. I don't understand. And he just said, I'll tell you what, if you come after me for the rest of your life, I promise you'll never be bored again. And so I made that commitment that night. But in the process of that, I turned around to God and I said, I'll make you a deal. And so everybody knows about the Muppets. Jim Henson, thank you, Jim, created the Muppets. They're part of Americana. But in the part of the Muppets, there's these two little old men that sit up on the balcony. Mm-hmm. And their only role is to criticize and heckle and make fun of anything new or different that they don't like. And in my mind, that was the church that I grew up in.
Right.
That it was just a bunch of old men who didn't want anything new, that made fun of anything new, and they just criticized everybody. Now, that was my mind. I always put a disclaimer on that. I'm not saying that because there were some good people in that church, but that's the way I perceived it. And I said to God, if that's your church, I don't want anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. And that's when he said, listen, son, if you'll do what I say, you'll never be bored. And so that's been 15 years ago, and I've never been bored since then. Now, I've been tired, and I've been angry, and I've been hungry, and a lot of things, but bored is something that's never happened in my life.
Never happened.
Just so happened.
I love that story because when I feel like it's like a movie where you're in that moment, you're upset, you're angry with God, you're just fully surrendered or angry, and you're saying, what do you want from me? And he says, all I ever wanted was you. Mm-hmm. And I got chills. I just got weepy there for a second again when I heard you say that, because my mind just flashes back like in a movie where they just go back to that scene of you when you were little.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this big, long story in between those two moments. But when you just take those two moments and you connect them, it's like you felt where this root of spirit of rejection came from. In that moment, he knew he was going to weave this tapestry in your life. You're going to go on this journey. You were going to connect with him again and have this transformation in your life. And all he ever wanted was you. And that's what I hope that everybody watching this gets.
Let me share two little things with you, Marlo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One I shared with you the other day. When I was 5 years old, I had an encounter with God, and he told me I was going to be. Excuse me. He told me I was going to be a pastor at 5 years old. Well, it took 50 years, but I finally got there. I finally became the man that calling was for.
Right.
See, that calling, when God put that calling on my life at 5, that calling never went anywhere. It just waited for me to become the person that was fit for that, to carry that calling. But my mother used to tell people, oh, he's going to be a pastor someday, but she always left out the part that I talked to God. Okay.
Right. Because of your culture, the culture that you
because of the religious culture that we were in. Those things just didn't happen. Well, there was one more incident that I didn't share with you. When I was 16, we went as a youth group to go see, I believe it was The Other Side of the Mountain. It was a Billy Graham movie. When Billy Graham used to rent the movie theaters, and they would show these movies. Well, I was at this movie, and I was so moved by that movie. And they did something I had never seen before. They did an altar call. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that in my church. and I got the shakes. My legs were jumping, you know. My heart's just pounding. And I'll never forget, there was a young girl sitting next to me, dear friend, and she said, "Do you want to go down?" I said, "I think so." And I went down, and I gave my life to the Lord. Well, I got home. I went straight to my mom and dad's bedroom. And I said, "You're never going to believe what happened tonight." And I still hear my mother, "You know what? Just go to bed. It'll be gone in the morning." Mm-hmm. And the spirit was quenched in me, because she was right. I went to bed and I didn't think about it anymore.
Wow. What a pivotal moment.
And so now you fast forward 16, you fast forward another 45 years or 35 years to a point where I'm crying out to God, "What do you want?" And he's just like going, "All I've ever wanted was you." It just, sometimes stuff just makes sense when you get old.
Yeah, you put all the pieces together. And it's interesting too with your mom. And, I always say this too. It's like, all of us, we know not what we do. And it's, it's a generational chain almost, we do what unless somebody breaks the generational chain and they take a look and they say, "Wait a minute, why do we do it that way? I need my own experience here." She was
doing
what she knew
how to do.
Yeah. And when you look at that, that's why I love going back and back and back, looking at the prior generation and the prior generation. And you just realize there's this generational chain, and they're just doing it the way that they always knew it. And your mom or somebody just like that scenario might be feeling like they're protecting. Maybe they felt hurt or rejection, and it just keeps carrying on. But thank God, literally, that you were willing and wanting ultimately to explore more and to believe a different truth. But that's such a powerful part of your story. More truth, that it's not as it appears, it's.
I have no animosity toward my mom. She's been gone a few years now, and I was never angry at her about that as it became relevant what really happened. It just happened. Here's what I tell myself, and I tell the man. I grew up in a church that was all about predestination. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I got born again in a church that was all about once saved, always saved. Mm-hmm. And now I have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I don't care how I got here. I'm just so glad I'm here.
it makes the
And
story.
I'm not offended by any of the past.
That's what people say. Well, you don't know what I've done. You don't know my story. You don't know what I believed. You don't know who I was surrounded with. It's all so relevant. It makes the story more, well, rich.
Yeah, exactly.
No pun intended there with your name, but it makes it more rich because of it's how we can ultimately sustain that truth, that belief, in that relationship. When we have the story, all the little nuggets that you've shared, the moments where you were deterred away from Jesus,
Yeah.
and then ultimately finding your peace and your freedom and the broken chains from that relationship.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful for your story. You had talked about going back. Jesus went back to the Jordan to be baptized, where God spoke over him and told him who he was. And in the very beginning of our chat, we talked about the fact that you're not recovering from something. It's about transformation, and it's about learning our identity. It's about learning our identity in who we are. So would you connect that with the story of Jesus going to the Jordan?
Well, there's a point toward the end of Jesus' life where it says, and he went back to the Jordan, to the other side of the Jordan. He went back to the place where he got baptized. And what we know about that place is not only did the Holy Spirit come to dwell on him, but God the Father opened the heavens and declared to the whole world, "This is my son."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. And Jesus went back to that place. Now, he went back there, I believe, because he knew that that was the place that God publicly pronounced his identity to the whole world. And it was just, we all have to have that place that we can go back to. I go back to that night on my living room floor 15 years ago, where God the Father said, "All I ever wanted was you." Anytime I doubt myself, anytime I'm struggling, anytime there's conflict in my life, I mentally go back to that floor. And I remember what he said. He said, "All I ever wanted was you." And if that's all that matters, this world and the things of this world don't control me. Mm-mm. They don't own me anymore. That's because it's not who I am. I am his son in whom he is well pleased. Mm. And that is my identity. Do I mess up? Do I make mistakes? Yeah, I do. But you know what? It's not who I am. It's not who I am.
Oh my gosh. So powerful. I am so thankful for you, Rich. I really am. I'm so thankful. I give God all of the glory and just that Holy Spirit connection in the middle of the night. That something said, put a post on Facebook right now. I mean, I got a lot of things to do with production to put on the comedy night, but that night when I woke up, it was put a post on Facebook right now about the charitable organization, and we were all.
I'm so glad you didn't ask for confirmation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's cool is that confirmation showed up in our first conversation.
It comes after. Yes.
We weren't even asking for it. And I knew it. I knew it the minute Sherry posted it. I felt it. And then when I talked to you guys, I already knew, but it was unbelievable. I am so thankful for you, Rich, for you sharing your story. I'm thankful for your story. I'm thankful for God being the thread all through your story, so that you, through your story, can help set hearts and minds and souls free.
Yeah. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to come on here and just share my love. It's just my love. That's all I'm sharing. A man walks in the building, I'll just tell him, you're not always going to like me, but the one thing you're never going to question is whether I love you. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to love you until you don't even see me. All you see is God the Father. Mm. And that's what it all comes down to.
So for men or women that are watching, that are struggling with some of the things that you struggled with, if you had 3 takeaway points, I know I might be catching you off guard there with that because we didn't talk about that, but what would you say to them? And it could be more than 3, but just What would you say if somebody feels, I mean, just to, you know, to create the situation here. They're feeling lost. They have maybe an addiction.
Right.
They have destroyed relationships in their life. There's no hope. They just want to have more and more comforts just to escape the pain. What would you say?
First of all, I would want them to know that they're not the person they were created to be. That when they're in their addiction, when their health isn't right, when it's food, drugs, alcohol, people, if that's what's controlling you, that is not what God created you to be. And understand that God doesn't make a mistake. He didn't make you to be that way. And that is not what you're created to be. Second of all, I would say we need to find out who you really are. Let's find your identity. Let's go to the Father and let's find out who he says you are. And let's hold on to that. And I think the one thing that I've learned the most recently, since beginning the health journey, is what's your why? Why do you want to change? Why do you need to change? And write out that why. Put that why out there. For me, my why is my wife. For me, my wife, my 9 grandchildren are my why. Mm-hmm. Men have their why is I want my family back.
Right.
You know, I want to see a son I haven't seen in years. You know, I remember one of the first men I worked with. Loved this guy. We were at a function, and he had already been through the program. And I have a picture of him somewhere, of him sitting on an ice chest with his daughter. And I just have a picture of their backs. It was the first time he had spoken to his daughter in 3 years, I think. And that's why that's why we do this, is to see those moments like that. Just God is in the business of reconciliation, and he wants to put families back together. But you have to remember why if you're doing it for you, probably not going to work. Right. But if your why is a godly why, and if you don't lose, Paul says, never take your eye off the prize. And so if we can stay focused on why are we here, because some days aren't so good. Some days when you're doing a health thing, you know, some days you just want to go have a cherry pie, you know, with lots of ice cream. You know, Some days when you're at the ranch and you've been working out in the yard, the guys want to go get a beer, you know. But why are you here? Why are you doing this? Why? Find your why. Mm-hmm. If you find your why, you can overcome anything.
Those are powerful steps. And I love the story that you talked about with a man sitting on an ice chest with his daughter. It just reminded me of what you said about sitting on a soap container, right?
Yeah.
Started. It's like I just as you're telling the stories, I'm seeing these highlights, spotlight moments of God working the plan that he had always intended by design. So yeah. I'd love to give you a final word here before we go, and then I'll say goodbye to you for a minute, and then I'll wrap up.
Okay.
Is there anything that you'd like to add before we?
I would just say, just know this: if who's ever out there, if you think that that'll work for me but not you, if you think that God's given up on you, God's never given up on anybody. All right. The thing is, he does give us choices. And I learned this from I stole this from a woman who had a home for girls, but I apply it to the men. I've never met a bad man. I just meet men that make bad choices. Mm. And you've just been making bad choices, whether it's about your health or whether it's about addiction or whether it's about marriage or pornography or anger or whatever it is. There's one answer. The answer is the same. It's Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And, if you want help with that, my wife, like I said, we're hope dealers. We want to give you hope.
Oh, Oh,
we will give you hope no matter what your situation is, because that's what we do. And we just want to help. So reach out to me if you'd like to talk. I love to visit with people.
awesome. And I have I'll put, there's a lot of links I want to add in here after the show. So many links that they can, people can find more hope and more resources. And this has been incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you to you and Tammy for all that you do. And I am overjoyed to have been able to bring your story out into the light so that it can have a ripple effect out into the world to just continually demonstrate God's goodness.
Power in the testimony.
That's right. Power in the testimony. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to you for now, but hold on one second. I would love to talk to you and Tammy backstage right after I finish up. So thank you so much, Rich. And bye for now. I am having to hold back tears. I'm so overjoyed by the power of that testimony, because I know so many people that are wrapped up in chains, and maybe it's not alcohol. Maybe it's not drugs. Who knows what it is? But maybe it's just the addiction of having to that feeling of rejection. Whatever. There's so many different types of addictions and ways that it shows up in our world. But Rich's testimony was so powerful. And what we talked about in the beginning is Romans 12:12, not conforming to the ways of the world. And I circled world there in that scripture, because the world is the world around us. But when I think about the world, I also think about the world that lives within our own mind. The world of the lies that we're telling ourselves, the chains, that's where they're rooted and that's where they're created. And we don't have to conform to those ways of any world, literally or figuratively. I am so overwhelmed about the beauty of Rich talking about who he is now, and that we're not the sum of our mistakes and the other parts of our story that can hold us captive. So I hope that you found some hope here today. I hope you found some practical tools. Please, if this spoke to you and you know somebody that can receive so much hope and inspiration from this, please share it with them. Because I know this is going to be chain breaking for so many. And for all of you that are here live, thank you so much for being here today live. And if you do feel compelled to share this with somebody that it can help set them free, please don't hesitate to do that, because there's so much hope. This is a hope-packed coffee chat at the Cubby Hole. I am so thankful for all of you being here. Thank you, whether you're watching in the replay or whether you're live. I appreciate you. And what a beautiful way to spend the month of June, to focus on all things men. Such a great lineup coming up the rest of the month. But if you're a woman, no matter who you are watching this, I hope that you also found hope and inspiration from Rich's story today. So thank you again, Rich. Thank you to all of you. And I will see you next week with another powerful coffee chat at the Cubby Hole. Bye, everybody. Bye for now.